Sweet.
Yeah, I think they could, right then and there they could only hear you but not me, but that's just fine. For all intents and purposes, we are now rolling. Welcome, dear Sighted. This is the first time that I've actually done an interview on this channel, and hopefully the first of many. And I also need to remember to turn off my phone because it tends to get chatty too. That's fine. So first and foremost, I'd like to be able to welcome to here at the site of SycrosD4 stream two very, very special guests, two people I've been working with for almost the better part of half a year now on a long-running commission that has recently been completed, now available for sale in many, many forms of merchandise. I'd like to welcome Patrick and his wife April of Kakariko Creations. So good to see you both. Excellent.
See you. Yeah.
So, if you're not able to see me on Twitch, or you can, or on YouTube, that's where I got it all pulled up right now. If you want to follow along via the stream that way, everything is the final piece of what we've been working on for well over 6 months now is now visible for all to see. And this, I cannot take any credit for the creative side of this idea. I was just the mastermind who put it all together. These were the mad geniuses who came up with the concept, put together the reference photos, stood like idiots with props in front of a camera to get all the poses right. So, they really deserve all the praise and respect for what turned out into this final product, aside from just the technical skill and knowing how to use Photoshop. This is really all their work. So I actually like to start off like, what exactly motivated you guys to break from the trends of a standard 9 to 5 and start putting together unorthodox and unlicensed video game merchandise like this? Like, where'd that idea come from?
So we had both had regular jobs.
Mm.
Like most people. I was working at a credit union, and she was working for a pharmacy. And when I got this job at the credit union, I never worked. Hang on a second.
Take your time. Take your time.
I don't know why I got all this crud in my throat. I never have worked in finance ever. I just went to a temp agency and I applied and I got this job. And I worked in collections.
Mm.
They didn't call it collections. They had a much nicer sounding name.
Yes.
I was delinquency control counselor.
That's a very, very erudite way to say that.
Very. And if anybody works at that company in that department, they now know who I'm talking about.
Yes, of course.
Because as far as I know, no one else calls it that, but I'm not wrong with that. Anyway, and I worked there for 3.5 years. I really liked it for 3 of those years. And one day after, we had for a while talked about, we would bounce ideas off each other, like, hey, what if we did this to be our own bosses and stuff, and it was all, I like to think that it was more than just talking back then. There was no real big motivation to actually go do it. We both had very comfortable jobs that paid very well, they took very good care of us.
Yes.
And one day I had a very frustrating time at work, and we were both working from home because of COVID.
Yes.
And I came out into the living room, and she was watching something on Netflix because she always got off work earlier than I did. And I sat down, we paused whatever it was she was watching, and I looked at her, and I'm pretty sure that it was before when I said, honey, you and I are way too smart to be working for other people. Why do we do this? So...
And then I probably said, I don't know, it's dumb.
Yeah, something like that. So things just, don't get me wrong, the company I worked for was great and all that. I'm not here to like badmouth anybody or anything like that. But things just were getting, a little bit more frustrating and so on for it just continued that way. And finally I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to work for myself. So I knew that the way to do that immediately was to just start doing gig work. So Uber, Lyft, DoorDash. I had done some DoorDash on the side, and she had also done some DoorDash. But it was really just, we'd go out for a few hours here and there. But it was enough to know that we can make money doing this if this is what we did. So after talking with her, and she told me, she's like, look, do this blows up in our face, you have to go get a job, even if that means that you're flipping burgers at McDonald's. And I'm like, hey, that's what happens. Okay. So that's what I gotta do. Yeah, maybe not McDonald's, but that's true. But just I had to go get some kind of work if this wasn't working out. So I put in my 2 weeks at the credit union.
Yes.
I made sure that I was signed up. Actually, at the time, I was just doing DoorDash. I hadn't even considered Uber and Lyft. In fact, the town that we live in a small town just outside Pensacola. I didn't think that Uber would have been, that there would be a big enough market for that. So it just never crossed my mind. So I started doing DoorDash. It's going really well. I met someone who was a DoorDasher. They were standing in line at Whataburger, and I noticed they had an Uber sticker on their car, and so I started talking to them about that. So they said, yeah, you should try that. So I added Uber. Now that's actually where most of my money comes from, Uber. I do Lyft, I do Roadie, which is kind of like DoorDash, but for not food. And my customer is not the person that I'm taking the product to. It's actually the merchant that needs it shipped. So, like Home Depot has a lot that, they need a wheelbarrow taken, somewhere or whatever. And so I go do that. And we like it. And then, it wasn't too long after I quit my job that she had put in her notice, and we had decided, like, okay, we're going to give this t-shirt thing a try. You can get on YouTube and you'll find millions probably of videos of people saying, like, oh, just quit your job and do this thing and you'll be a millionaire. And,
yes.
And I have no doubt that one day that will be us.
Oh, yes.
They do make it sound like in a month or two.
It'll just happen overnight.
Yeah, a dump truck just pulls up to your house with cash and dumps it in your front yard.
Yes.
And you're set. And we weren't so foolish to think that it was going to be as easy as they made it sound. But I don't think that either one of us had any idea that it was going to be the learning process that it has been. But all that is to say, it's been I've been happy with how this has gone. I mean, yeah, sure, I would like it if a dump truck pulled up into my house and dumped a bunch of cash in my front yard. But, with where we are, I think we're on a really good track. I think I realize I'm getting this information from The Office, but I assume that the data is correct, that it actually takes 3 to 5 years for a business to really become profitable.
Oh, yes.
We've been doing this for, I think, October or November will be a year. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That sounds about right. So we're a year into it.
Yes.
But, like, we have other forms of income. Actually, while I was looking for what I was going to do when I left the credit union, I do some photography on the side. I actually contract with a company that they exclusively do graduation photos.
Oh, nice.
So, like, one of the colleges around here, hey, we've got a graduation day. They contract us to come handle all the photography for that. And so I contract with them. So I was actually on one of those job finding websites looking for photography gigs. And I searched wedding photography. And because wedding was in my search query, this job for a DJ kept popping up.
Okay.
And at first, I just ignored it. I've never done anything like that before. Admittedly so, I don't follow music a whole lot. The most recent music that is even... I realize most people don't buy music anymore, but if I were still buying music, the most recent things that I have in my collection are, like, Linkin Park's third album.
Oh my goodness.
That was what, maybe 2003 3,
something
maybe.
like that. I was in high school at that time. So.
Right. So I don't follow a whole lot of music. So I just didn't think that, like being a DJ, this is going to be anything I can do. But it kept popping up. And I thought, okay, how hard can it be? I'm fairly outgoing.
Yes.
So why not? I'll apply. I probably won't get the job, but at least I tried. That was actually the only job that I applied for, and
really?
that I got.
Oh, wow.
So I've been DJing for a little over a year. I think my first gig was something that we do around here called Fiesta Five Flags. I hope anybody who hears this doesn't take this the wrong way, but this is really just an excuse for rich people to dress up in colorful Native American garb and dance around like dummies without it looking like they've completely lost their mind.
Okay.
So, but hey, good for them.
Yes.
If I had that kind of money, I'd probably join them.
Exactly.
That's what it is. So, but yeah, and I've done some weddings, do private events. I do, the company that I work for, Boogie Incorporated, they also get contracted to do the Blue Angels air show here every year. That is a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah, and then April spends her time working on more designs. Her and I obviously collaborated a lot on this thing that you have up here with Urbosa and Zelda and the Champs and all that. And then I met you in, I'm pretty sure, Geeks Under Grace.
Yes, it's been a number of years that we've been, Facebook friends. So
right.
Yes.
And so I'm like, hey, I know this artist, and I've seen some of his work, and he's really good. So we'll contact him, and we'll try this T-shirt thing out. And now here we are talking to you on Twitch.
Yes, man, that's quite the journey. I'm always in admiration of a genuine entrepreneurial spirit. A person who is willing and able to just throw their gauntlet down and said, "Hey, I'm tired of getting paid money. I want to learn how to make money on my own terms, in my own ways." That's never easy. That's always a risk. But you always got someone out there who's got that gleam in their eye to say, "Hey, let's go for it anyway." And it's smart enough to always have a cushion to fall back on in case things go belly up, because, most new ideas fail. That's just a fact of life. And genuine innovation and entrepreneurship is not a common characteristic. Very, very few people have that about them. And even fewer of them have the wherewithal to actually go and do it. And then fewer people than that actually have the wherewithal to go and do it, and it actually works. Yeah. So here's hoping and praying that you guys will be part of that minority of a minority of a minority that turns out just as successful as all the others, just as I am. I haven't quit my day job, but what I'm doing here as a content creator is also my own journey as an entrepreneur of its own sort. Being a freelance artist itself is like what I call my night job. By day I'm an IT professional, by night I'm a freelance artist. So and I'm sure I got some other third job in there as a content creator, so some people may mistake me for being Jamaican for that reason, because I got 3 jobs. So, but I take that as a compliment, because those are some very accomplished people right there. So, when if I were to speak to this, when you first approached me with this idea, I was definitely on board with doing Zelda fan art. It may surprise some people to know, and we may go back and forth on this, but when you said specifically that it was going to be based on Breath of the Wild, my heart sank a little bit, because I know I'm very much in the minority. I did not enjoy Breath of the Wild very much.
Oh, yeah?
No, as soon as I pretty much stopped after I got the Master Sword. Once I got the Master Sword, I found all 4 beasts. I got enough hearts to get the Master Sword just to get that iconic moment, and after that I was like, you know what? I'm not motivated to go any further. I know, and again, I know I'm in the minority. As far as most people who have played this game are concerned, they consider it one of the best games ever made. I disagree. I played Horizon Zero Dawn shortly after that, which many people consider to be like the PlayStation equivalent to Breath of the Wild, and I enjoyed that a lot more. And then, of course, this year I platinumed Elden Ring, and I don't know why people would necessarily compare that to Breath of the Wild. I can kind of see that. in a sense, I would say his quote-unquote dungeon design is a lot better than that, but still vastly superior. But I take it from what I've seen in your paraphernalia that you keep around you, you're at the very least longtime Nintendo aficionados. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, me anyway. You, April played some as a kid, but I don't think it was really until you and I met that you got really into it. In fact, when we were still dating, she asked me, I don't know what led her to this, but she goes, "Hey, do you have a Super Nintendo?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Do you have Link to the Past?" I'm thinking, well, of course I do. And she goes, "Can I borrow it?" And it was right then, and I'm like, I'm gonna marry this lady.
Yeah. I still didn't know exactly how much of a nerd you were.
No, but she found it very quickly. And actually, as to your what you were saying about Breath of the Wild,
yes,
it's not my favorite Zelda game. I don't even know. Is it your favorite Zelda game?
It's probably equal to Link to the Past.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I absolutely love the open world and being able to climb all over everything.
Yeah. To me, A Link to the Past is the best Zelda game. I don't know that it will ever not be the best Zelda game. I know that the older games are a lot more linear, and the thing now is open world, go do whatever you want. I think that the dungeon design benefits from the linearity of the older games, and so
it does.
It's definitely my preference. I've always said of Breath of the Wild that every 10 out of 10 that it was given, it deserved, and every 4 out of 10 that it got, it probably also deserved. Because there's just, like, I get why people play that game and are like, I don't like this, and I'm never going to play it again. But I also get why people are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Especially if you're a Nintendo fan.
Yes.
Because unless you had, like, a PC and played Skyrim, you'd probably never experienced anything like that ever.
Probably not. I can imagine, though. I come from a long line of open world games. Actually, I've been prior to Breath of the Wild, I played an unhealthy amount of Assassin's Creed. I played a lot of what are some other open world games that I played? Jak 2 back on the PlayStation 2 was probably the first, like, quote unquote Grand Theft Auto style open world game that I ever played, and I fell in love with that game from day one. So I had a lot of experience with open world type games, and some of the mechanical and design choices in Breath of the Wild did not seem conducive to me to a very enjoyable open world experience. The fact that a stamina bar is always present, no matter what you're doing, made me think, like, these guys do realize that movement and fluency of movement is a necessary component to enjoying this experience of theirs, right? That's why I was very happy, like, with Elden Ring, for example, the same guys who made Dark Souls, which also very heavily depends on a stamina bar. With Elden Ring specifically, they were smart enough to make the decision that your stamina does not deplete when you're not in combat. So you can still do all that open world stuff without having your movement constantly restricted by this ever-present green bar saying slow down every 30 seconds. So that's just one of the complaints that I had about Breath of the Wild specifically. That's not necessarily to say that I don't enjoy Zelda in general. I played like maybe an hour of A Link to the Past on my Switch, and I can definitely, just from that alone, I can see why people like it so much. I come from the generation that championed Ocarina of Time as the best Zelda game of all time, and I know there's still a small school of thought that still considers that not just the best Zelda game, but the best game of all time, period. I'm not too sure I would count myself among their numbers, but I can definitely see where they're coming from. I was also there, I was in college when Twilight Princess was released, and that's probably still my personal favorite Zelda game, if I were to pick a favorite. So that's where I come from in regards to this. But as I started digging into this particular piece, where we're going to turn all the champions of Breath of the Wild into like a hard rock band and like put them in the heart of a mountain, I was like, okay, I can see the aesthetic here. I can see like musicality pouring out of this. And from that moment on, I was on board. It's like, okay, yeah, let's turn these guys into rockers. Now, I think you and I are both from a generation where, for some reason, everybody wanted to turn cartoon characters into a band. Virtual bands were a big thing during the 70s and the 80s. And you had, like, the Archies, you had flipping, Josie and the Pussycats, you had Alvin and the Chipmunks, was a big one for me. I'm sure the Ninja Turtles have a album somewhere that I just don't know about. But why not follow in that spirit with this? So I want to get more detailed on what exactly inspired this particular idea of taking these characters from this very recent Zelda game and say, hey, let's put them in a band. Like, what gave you that idea?
So it's interesting. I'm actually just now thinking, like, you were talking about that, and I'm like, well, Zelda, especially, even from the first one, because I believe there was a flute in the very first NES game, and there's been music. Music's been a big part. Ocarina of Time, obviously, music was a big part. Skyward Sword, for anybody who's maybe picked that up on Switch here recently or played it. I played on the Wii originally. Music's a big part, and so I was getting ready to go into like that's it. But then with Breath of the Wild, I'm like, actually, there's not a lot of music themes in Breath of the Wild, with the exception of there is a Rito character that you can find across the land, and he's playing an accordion, and he'll sing these songs, and they give you like clues as to something you can do in the environment. But outside of that, yeah, Breath of the Wild's not real music heavy. But I mean, I think you were a lot of the reason why we went this direction. Do you want to go into why?
That we were just sitting around trying to come up with some kind of idea that we thought would look really cool, and we both really like this game.
Yeah.
I think that the artwork in this one is a lot prettier to look at than the other Zeldas. So
that could also
that
just
had a lot
be
to do with it.
That could also just be from being newer, and so it just looks nicer.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Also, I mean, there were the champions, and so for me, it was like, well, this is a band. This is a group of people that are going to work together. If you went with like a Link to the Past, I don't think that would be nearly as detailed and interesting as Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and now you mentioned that, this, because of the champions, there is a big focus on characters that are not Link, Zelda, and Ganon. Whereas if you were to go to other games, Impa always plays a big role in, especially from Ocarina of Time on. I know Skyward Sword has Groose and a few other characters, but I do think Breath of the Wild is the one game where it's like there is this group of people, or
like they go and fight together.
Yeah, even though, I mean, 4 of them are dead by the time the game happens, but yeah, that's the history of them, is that they were warriors together. And actually, if you play Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, you see a lot more of them working together. We had that. This was actually not the first idea that we tossed out there that involved music. I had an idea for, and we'll probably revisit this later for a future design, but Mario, Luigi, Wario, and Waluigi in a boy band.
Oh, wow.
I think it's just a really funny idea.
It is funny. I'm already thinking about it now. Great. I'm going to be thinking about that while I go to class tonight. That's great.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
We'll probably hit you up for it sometime in the future.
And sad thing is, yes, sad thing is, my sisters are big K-pop fans, so that's the first place that my head went to. We'll see how that turns out, but yeah, that sounds like a hilariously fun idea.
And the thing that I think is so funny about that is you think of a typical boy band, so BTS or Backstreet Boys. They're all these, I guess to some people, they're these unbelievably good-looking and thin, fit people, and then we are going to take Mario and Wario, who are both overweight. Wario is morbidly overweight,
morbidly obese.
Right, and then Luigi. I guess Luigi's fairly normal looking for a cartoon, but then Waluigi he's this little toothpick.
He's a little imp, right?
Right, super thin.
None of them are conventionally attractive. Let's just put that. Exactly. They're not exactly Final Fantasy characters or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, like it wouldn't be too weird for me to see Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and even Barrett like done up like they're in a boy band, but Mario That's strange.
They're already pretty. Yeah, shoot, they're already prettier than most boy band characters.
That's true.
I remember a big deal when the Final Fantasy VII remake was released, and people were for the first time in ever seeing just how like model perfect so many Final Fantasy characters tend to be, because that was like one of the first Final Fantasy games in recent times that was like widely available for anybody to play.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of my, everyone of every gender was looking in, finding something that they liked to put some eye candy of theirs that they favored. For the, as for us guys, Tifa and Aerith. For the girls, it was like Biggs and Cloud. And it was like, yes, this is Final Fantasy, where the beautiful people live. So yeah, it's kind of funny that that was the first time they got a clue into that. And furthermore, you two are obviously far more familiar with Zelda Arcana than I am. I cannot say that I am a Nintendo veteran. Before I bought my Switch, maybe 3 years ago, I think it was now, the last Nintendo system I ever owned was the NES. No, okay. Not the SNES, the NES, the original box. Ugly, yeah, that ugly, huge cartridge-looking box. And I only had 3 games for it, too. Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, and Duck Hunt.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I had for it. So after that, I got a Sega Genesis, and I stuck around that for years and years until the PlayStation 1 was released, and it's been PlayStation ever since then.
Yeah.
So
you said that it doesn't work. I've been trying to figure out why and repair it, but here's my NES.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's exactly what I had. That thing right there.
Yeah, and actually to my right is, well, the Super Nintendo is currently hooked up in the house.
Oh, okay.
Because my lovely wife here. So my favorite game in the world, and so you're definitely going to be getting us asking you about art for this, is Chrono Trigger.
Oh!
I don't think there is a better game ever made. I don't know that there will ever be a better game ever made, but she's never played it. And so she's like, oh, I want to play Chrono Trigger. So I got the Super Nintendo out. I got the cartridge out. I have if anybody's listening and is really into retro games, but you don't want to go through the trouble of having a CRT in your house, which I actually have a CRT over here.
So do I.
Get a... Here, this is the old model. Just for the record, these people aren't sponsoring me or anything. I just like this device.
Yeah.
This is the old model, but this is the Retro Tink 2X. You plug in, you can do RGB.
Cool.
It'll take S-Video, and it upscales it. This one upscales it, I think, to 720p just by line doubling. Pixel art looks really good on this. 3D stuff, so like PlayStation N64. I mean, it does the job, but it doesn't look quite as good.
Huh.
And they also sell one that they sell one that has the Nintendo multi-out, so you can plug it directly into your Super Nintendo and your N64, and it'll work. Actually, and your GameCube.
Wow.
And then they also make one for the Sega Genesis, and it'll take the RGB signal from both of those. So, yeah, because even though they didn't come with RGB back then, the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis do natively output RGB. It'll take that and upscale it to 720p. The new one is the Retro Tink 5X, and it actually upscales it to 4K.
Wow.
I really want one of those, but it's like $200. So,
yeah, start budgeting.
That's right. One day when I'll
have that truck that drops off.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
When all of you lovely people buy all my shirts, then I can buy one of these things.
Yeah. In fact, if you got a link to where they can start getting these things, you can go ahead and throw that in the chat. I made sure my Nightbot will allow for links. So go ahead and do that whenever you wish, and I'll make sure I'll put that in the description as well. So, that's a fascinating way to be able to get back into that. So Chrono Trigger, I actually do have Chrono Trigger on stream. That's one of the legendary titles that it's not unpopular and unusual to find that on every list of the best games of all time somewhere.
Right.
It's right up there with titles like Final Fantasy VII, Ocarina of Time, a few GoldenEye 007. Every list of greatest games of all time, you're pretty much guaranteed to find Chrono Trigger on there somewhere. So it's definitely going to be incumbent upon me to take it upon myself to see about like what all the fuss is about that particular title, because I'm largely unfamiliar. I've actually, my experience with RPGs as well is also fairly young, juvenile. I'm trying to think what was the first like RPG I really sunk my teeth into. I want to say the first Kingdom Hearts on PlayStation 2, but that may not be accurate. I'm not too sure. But that's also something I have to get around to. Now, another thing that was interesting to me is the choice in our commission, the choice of instruments for these characters. Was there a lot of thought put into that, of like how each one may be reflective of their personalities, or did you just kind of like get a large pot of instruments that you would like to see in a band and just randomly choose who would play what, or what was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely more thought put into it than just slapping it up there. And but
sure. We talked about which one was going to be.
Yeah,
each one. You were very specifically like, oh, Rivali's definitely a bass player.
Well,
he's for sure on the drum.
Yeah, so I'm a drummer.
Oh, okay.
And I know that if there's a big kind of crazy guy in a band, he's probably playing the drums.
Probably.
So it's like, well, Doruka is obviously that. So that was a fairly easy. And then Zelda being the lead singer, that was also probably just like, well, duh. Like, what else would we do?
Right.
Especially because Link doesn't talk. He was the singer. And then and then making him lead guitar was also fairly an easy decision. I would say it's probably the other three that we spent the most time
for me,
talking.
Diva is just kind of graceful, and that's what the keyboard is to me. It's a graceful instrument.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you've played Breath of the Wild enough to know the personality of Rivali, I'm just like, yeah, I imagine like David Bowie. He's got the makeup and the hair. Probably spends a lot of time in front of the mirror.
Oh yeah.
And because he's not going to be the lead singer because that's Zelda, well, what's the other person in a band that would be like that? Well, there's some, self-important guitar player who thinks he's all that and that he's the reason why anybody's there. So and that's actually where I got the pose from. I actually thought that I had seen a picture of David Bowie. I know Bowie doesn't play guitar in his band, but like just kind of in that sort of draped over.
Yes.
I don't even know how you describe it, but I couldn't find a picture of David Bowie doing that. I did, however, find pictures of other guitarists. I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm going for.
Absolutely.
And then Urbosa. I don't know. Did we put Urbosa on bass just because that's what was left, or did we like? Oh, this is really good. I don't remember.
I think that also made sense for Urbosa, but I don't know that we necessarily put as much thought.
Yeah, I will say, bass players generally don't, at least in my experience, they're not trying to be the center of attention. They're not. I mean, unless you happen to have so like if anybody out there is familiar with the band Skillet, well, that guy, he's the bass player and he's the lead singer. So
wow,
sort of like the exception.
That is an exceptional.
Yeah, but most bassists, they're just kind of in the back. Maybe you give them a bass solo every now and then, but they're not itching to be the center of attention. I don't feel like Urbosa is looking to be the center of attention for anybody either, but she's very sturdy.
Yes,
which you need a bass player needs to be sturdy and firm. So it just made sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And yeah, Doruka as the drummer is that's the one that made the most sense to me. Honestly, as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, I honestly don't see how it could be any different. Well, one, he's always squatting like a sumo wrestler, and that's what drummers are doing. They're sitting, squatting in front of their kit. And he loves to hit stuff, and that's what drummers do. They all hit stuff. And he's always happy, and I don't know about anybody else, but you can't be mad playing a drum. Like,
no.
You just can't. Like, I don't see how anybody can remain straight-faced while playing the drum. I think it was my sister actually took me to see some J-rock band that actually visited here in D.C. for the first time in the States called Rides in Rebellion. And I took her to see that band, and I participated and went to the concert with her, and I had a good time. And far and away, the happiest dude in the band was the drummer. Like, he was having the time of his life. He was like a kid at Christmas morning throughout the entire concert. So it made perfect sense for the happiest member of the Champions to also be the drummer. Like, that's the one that made so much sense to me. But probably the most out of left field design choice was the choice of Ganon. We're not going with the Ganon of Breath of the Wild. This is a different sort of Ganon. It's kind of funny, Ganondorf is probably one of the most amorphous video game villains out there. He comes in a variety of forms. He doesn't have one fixed identity. Sometimes he's just a calamitous cloud. Sometimes he's a big green guy with a sword and royal garb. And sometimes he's this pig dude. So this particular choice of Ganon is what really made my head swim. And I'd like to see if I could pick your brain apart if there's any particular reason why this particular Ganon was chosen for this piece rather than the myriad of other Ganon options that we have available to us.
Well, the Ganon in Breath of the Wild is boring compared to Pig Ganon.
I agree, especially because that's a criticism that I would also levy against Breath of the Wild, is that the big bad enemy is, for so much of the game, he's just this thing that's in the background that you don't really interact with much at all. And then even I know you haven't beaten the game, so spoilers.
I know what happened. I know what happens though.
Okay, so the big fight before you do fight some sort of pig-like Ganon-looking thing is he almost looks like one of the blights from inside the Divine Beast. He's kind of, I don't want to say generic looking, because I mean if you saw him and you played the game, you go, oh yeah, that's Ganon. But he is still just sort of this grotesque monster looking thing. I feel like Pig Ganon is the if you're gonna go with a non-human form Ganon, Pig Ganon is the iconic, like, you look at him and yes, that's Ganon. I know who that is. I don't have to think about that at all. If we'll probably, I like human form. I guess, is he a human? I guess he is. I don't really know what.
Well, he's the same species as Urbosa, actually.
Yeah, right. Because he's a Gerudo.
Gerudo, yes.
So, I would say, personally, my favorite design of that form of Ganon is from Wind Waker.
Me too. I'm so glad you said that. Oh, good.
So good. She hasn't played Wind Waker yet, so that's in her list. But yeah, if we're gonna go with a beast form of Ganon, he's, you see him. He's obviously in the very first Zelda. I think he's in Zelda 2. I'll admit I haven't beat that one. But he's in A Link to the Past. He's in Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
He's in Twilight Princess. I don't think he transforms in Wind Waker at all.
No, not to my recollection.
I don't remember or not. And then, and then Calamity Ganon is pig-esque looking.
Almost.
Right, but is, so I think, and
like a pig ghost.
Right,
demon ghost.
And to what April said, Calamity Ganon is probably the most boring version of Ganon that has ever existed. So.
Yeah, I suppose that depends on how exactly you like to see your villains. Another little element of my gaming profile is that I'm a Souls veteran, and a lot of the villains or the big bads and the characters that get the most lore attention are these ephemeral quasi-eldritch entities and calamities in the background that you don't directly interact with but are constantly seeing the effects of their presence throughout the entire world. And that's kind of how Calamity Ganon was supposed to come across to me in Breath of the Wild. But I can understand for someone who's built such a camaraderie with Ganon as this more traditional, down-to-earth and immediately approachable villain, the Calamity approach may be a bit jarring and disorienting and not all that engaging. I can definitely see why someone would take issue with that. But I appreciate the attempt that Nintendo was making there. And I can definitely see, recently with villains, I mentioned again the Elden Ring. And yes, you do eventually like fight the big bad at the end, that is like a manifestation of this presence, this entity that you've been hearing about throughout your entire run of the adventure. For some reason, I also think of this, it's a lesser known indie game that not too many people have played, but those who have played it really loved it. It's a game called Blasphemous.
I've heard of it.
Yes, I've beaten that game, I think, more than once. I know they've come out with some recent DLC that I haven't tried out yet. But for those who don't know, it's like a Souls-like Metroidvania type game, and the setting is really interesting. It takes place in a fantastical reimagining of medieval Spain, and a lot of the game's lore and fantasy is based on a bunch of old legends and folklore from medieval Spain. But the big entity that's constantly mentioned throughout the game is something just simply called the Miracle, which I suppose is supposed to like take the place of God throughout the entire thing, but it's supposed to be like this entity or this calamity that is, does not exist in any kind of corporeal form, but everyone knows about it, and the effect of its presence can be seen throughout the entire world in a variety of manifestations, both good and bad, and just plain weird and surreal and nightmarish. So I don't think Calamity Ganon went all the way in with that, and maybe it would have resonated more if they went further in that direction of presenting it as like this unapproachable, incorporeal entity that no one can like manifest outside of these like mirror-like avatars that you can only get but so close to before you're driven to madness. But maybe that's going a little bit too far down the dark road that, was so divisive with Twilight Princess, for example. I remember there was a big buzz about like a lot of people were wanting Zelda as a series to go darker and more mature, and they got that with Twilight Princess to a degree, and it was very divisive in the fan base for that regard. Like, some people like, hey, this is what we want, thanks. Other people was like, it's okay, but it could be better. And some people was like, this is stupid. Zelda's not flipping Batman or whatever. We don't need all this grit and angst and all that nonsense or anything like that. So I don't know where you sit on that, but I don't really have much of a dog in that fight personally.
I like them both. Like, I like how bright and colorful Wind Waker was.
Yes.
And then I also like how kind of dark, and I will say, like, if we're what am I trying to say? Like, color scheme wise, I prefer the bright stuff. I'm somebody who's very critical of AAA games are just all kind of brown and gray.
Yes.
And I don't know who decided that this is what we all wanted, but I wish that they hadn't decided this. But I also, which is actually one cool thing about Breath of the Wild, is it is post-apocalyptic, and yet it's very green. It's, there's trees and vegetation and some kind of like almost like a hope that there'll be something better out there. Here's a hot take. I don't like Skyrim. And one of the reasons why I don't like it is it's just, I spent several hours in that world and was just like, everything's just so drab. I can't. Have you played? Oh gosh, what was it? It was on PS4 for a while, and then it came out for Switch. I Am Setsuna.
I've heard of it. I've not played that. No.
Okay. The plot and everything is really good. At least what I've played of it. The battle system is a lot like Chrono Trigger, so I'm like, man, this is going to be right up my alley. The entire game takes place in the snow, and so everything is just white. And after a while, it gets so boring to look at.
Yeah, I can see how.
I can't keep pushing through. And I've tried. I've started that game over 3 times, and every time I get a little bit further than I did the last time. And I'm actually at a point now where if I were to go back to it and pick up my save file, I'd be like, I don't remember what's going on. I got to start over.
Yeah.
But I hate that, because everything else about the game I love so much. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so depressing to stare at.
I can definitely feel that, and there is I think I do remember, like, when the Realist Brown trend started picking up. That was around the PS2 era. I remember that specifically. I remember JRPG titles like Radiata Stories, for example, really went heavy into that whole Realist Brown attitude. Brown and lens flare. That's what made everything real in those days, and it seems like nobody's really has learned their lesson from that too much. Some people know how to get really, really creative and make variety to their environments, even when the overall tone of the game is supposed to be dark and drab and post-apocalyptic. Just recently, The Last of Us got a remake. Part 1, the good one. No, not the terrible, horrible Part 2 game that really should have died on the cutting room floor. But yeah, Part 1 got a full-scale remake. And just revisiting that, yeah, it's incredible how they added so much variety to such a dying world. And yeah, there is, and I think one of the genius things is that the whole story takes place over the course of all 4 seasons. So that enables them to say, hey, we're going to see a lot of green foliage. We're going to have a period where everything's covered in snow, and we're going through a blizzard. We're going to be traveling through dilapidated coffee shops sunken in half of a flood. So there's going to be a lot of variety there. Another example, I'm going to keep mentioning it again, but it's probably going to be on everyone's mind for this year, is Elden Ring. Elden Ring it's a bit of a trend throughout most of those FromSoft games. You, the player character, always come in after all the most interesting things in the world have already happened. That seems to be a common thing throughout all those games, from as far back as Demon Souls. And one of the things that I really love about that is that it's a very humbling experience to the player. So many of video game experiences to give this like juvenile power fantasy to the player. It's all about making you feel ultra super powerful and important. FromSoft games are like, no, more than likely you're just going to wind up as just another random face's blood stain on the floor, and we're going to drill that into your head from the beginning, because the first thing you do is create a character. Why is that? What is that supposed to communicate? You can be whoever you want because it doesn't matter. Because you don't matter. As far as this world and this game is concerned, you're just somebody else. Welcome to the funhouse. And in spite of all that, there's a lot of variety and color and vividness, especially in Elden Ring. I think it was like 2 times over the course of that game, like my mouth actually dropped from how breathtaking the environment that I just accidentally stumbled upon was. There was one time where I accidentally came across this massive elevator that went down for like a full 2 minutes, and then I realized that I was underground and looking up at the cosmos under the earth. Like, I did not expect to see that at all. And the other time is when I stumbled upon an entire kingdom built around a giant golden tree. And everywhere I looked, like, everything was paved in gold, and everything was surreal and magisterial. And I was like, I don't think I should be here right now. It's like I'm not worthy to be here right now. Yeah. But it's still presented in this, like, apocalyptic environment. And yeah, that's one of the things that I can say Breath of the Wild does very well. That, yes, we're in this calamitous period where over 100 years this evil entity has taken over the land, but there are still pockets of civilization here and there, and people making do with what they got, and you see a lot of variety. Like, the environment of the Zora is aesthetically very, very different from the environment of the Doruka, and vice versa. So it really pays to Nintendo's credit that they know how to make a world feel alive, even though so many things seem to be dead.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say on that. I don't think there's anything else in terms of questions that I have about this commission. If you have anything that you would like to ask, I'm all ears.
Well, so I do want to talk about when we first started doing this. I had never commissioned a piece of work. I never designed a t-shirt, as far as I know. You haven't either. Yeah. So when we got into this, like, one thing that I appreciated about working with you was, first of all, you were very patient with the two of us, who I'm sure and I wouldn't blame you at all if there were sometimes we said something to you and you just looked at it and was like, this makes no sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about. But there were also times when, you would say something to us about, like, well, here's why this wouldn't work, or so. And there were occasionally where I'd be like, I don't understand why this won't work, but I'm not an artist. I mean, what the heck do I know? And so, but you were willing to try things, even if you had told us, like, I don't think that's going to work, and we'd ask you to do it anyway. You'd try it. I appreciated the willingness to do that, but I also appreciated the pushback that we got, because we learned a lot. And I think that for as amazing as this piece turned out, it's our first one. I think that our next one is going to be even better, and a lot of that is going to be because now we've learned a lot of, how to communicate with you, or, if for some reason we use a different artist or whatever down the road, we know how to communicate with the artist. When we went and put this thing on a t-shirt for the first time,
Yes.
That was actually, I don't know if we had actually done the process of putting on a t-shirt, but we had started picturing like, what's this going to look like on a t-shirt. And when we first got it, it's just a box.
Yes.
Which, I don't know what we would have expected it to look any differently. Like, that's what we asked for. And on a poster, that would look really good, or as, something that you stick up on the wall, or even as a desktop background, it would look really good. But if you've ever seen a t-shirt and there's just a square
Yes.
in the middle of it, most of the time, I wouldn't say all the time, but most of the time, it doesn't look so hot. So that's where we were like, well, what if we had the edges like burning and stuff? And I do remember, like, we had a long back and forth about that, because we were having trouble communicating to you exactly what it was that we wanted. But I'm very happy with the way that it turned out. And I appreciate that you were willing to, we have Photoshop, and so, and actually we're going through a YouTube course on how to use Photoshop. And of course it's, it's not going to make us digital artists, but it is showing us, like, this is what you can do with layers, and this is what you can do with the curves, and, and I took a Photoshop class back in college, but that was, 2008.
Yeah.
There are so many more things that this software can do now.
It's a completely different program.
Right. So I'm learning new stuff. She's learning new stuff. In fact, she's I think a lot better with details and stuff. So she'll show me something and I'll be like, man, I never would even thought to try that. So so we've got a lot more simple designs coming down the pipeline that we're obviously not going to need a graphic designer for. Like right now, and I think this is one of my. I'll see if I can find it on the Etsy shop. So there's here we go. I'm gonna just put the link in the chat, and then if you want to open it up or whatever you want to do, if you can. I got on Etsy and I was just like, okay, what are some like silly video game phrases that are out there, because people don't own these phrases. Right. Now they own the design of how the text and stuff was, but everybody out there has seen a T-shirt or a block of wood in somebody's house that says "Eat, Love, Pray." Nobody owns that. You can do whatever you want with that.
Yes.
I do remember Donald Trump tried to copyright "You're Fired," and was told, no,
you can't do that.
So I got on Etsy and I was looking for stuff, and I found that there's this new one that's pretty popular, and I like it a lot. It says, "I love it when my wife lets me play video games," but it's designed in a way so that you really just see "I love my wife."
Yes.
And the rest of the words are real small.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, I like that. It's clever, but my wife plays video games with me.
Yes.
There is no letting me play video games.
Yes.
So I changed it to "I love it when my wife plays video games with me."
Which is much better.
Well, thank you.
That's much better. It's much more representative of a healthier relationship.
Exactly. Yeah, like, that was another thing about the other one, is like, I get that this is probably most people's relationship experience, but I'm like, man, the thought that I have to go, "Please, honey, can I play some video games?" Like, I wouldn't want to be in that relationship.
No, that's not healthy.
I wouldn't want to be that wife.
Right.
Exactly. It's like those football widows. Once football season comes around, she might as well not be married.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's not
awful.
like that.
Why do you want that? So we put that up. The other way around. So
yes.
I love it when my husband. That one's coming.
Awesome.
Obviously, it's not as simple, because if you look at that shirt, the link that I sent you, the design is basically a square. If I were to just take out wife and put husband, I'd have to. It's not as simple as that.
It'll take some finagling.
Yeah, but we also want to, that shirt is obviously meant for women.
Yes.
I suppose if there's any gay guys out there that want to buy it, I don't have a problem with that. Go ahead, buy it. But because of that, it's probably going to be a little bit more girly, if that's the term to use.
More feminine in its design.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, the font will be a lot more flowy and
More
and not
feminine,
quite
yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So that one's in the oven.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have it up soon. April just made another one that I won't say what it is because when we put it up, it'll be. Oh, you know my. Okay, so she.
No, so one of my favorite
ahead.
phrases is "I do what I want because I'm an adult."
Ah.
And so I finally put that on a t-shirt, and I sketched out this guy, this like, I don't know, he's not really a stick figure, but he's like a weird looking, very 2D guy that's fancy and sipping some tea.
So
Yes.
when she sent me the picture, I think I was out driving Uber when she said, "Oh, I just got like a glance at it at first." I thought she drew Mr. Peanut.
Huh.
It's not Mr. Peanut. And like when you look at it, it's obviously not Mr. Peanut.
Okay.
It's just that I got like a half-second look at it while I was driving a passenger and was like, "Did she just sketch Mr. Peanut? What is that?"
Are you talking?
But it-
You're not talking. Yeah, I'm thinking Mr. Peanut from BoJack Horseman.
Oh no, the Planters Peanut guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not like really nerdy or anything.
Yeah.
No.
Just something that I like.
Right, and the shop is gonna slowly grow.
Oh yes.
Expand beyond strictly nerdy stuff.
Cool.
Well, we will have. I mean, like, you probably won't find Eat, Love, Pray on our shop just because.
I hope not.
It doesn't mean anything to me. But more, what is it? More generic, more broad appeal stuff. That was the thing about this Zelda thing is like it's awesome. I love it. It's probably going to be my favorite piece for a while. But something that we both recognize is that you're not going to buy this unless A, you're a fan of Zelda, and B, you probably need to be a fan of this very particular Zelda game. And
Probably.
obviously there's millions of people out there that love this game and love this design, but mom who's buying a shirt for her kid is probably not going to come across this and buy it. Now, a shirt that says, oh, there's another one that I saw. I paused my video game to be here. I'm
I
sure
like that
we'll
one.
probably do some kind of variation of that. That's
Yes.
the kind of shirt that somebody's going to stumble upon it, and it's gonna sell a lot of. So
We're also planning on doing
Yeah.
more than just t-shirts.
Okay.
So soon we'll be coming out with posters. We're very particular about the companies that we work with. We want to make sure that they have good ethics and things like that. So it's also a process to learn, like learning how to make t-shirts was, oh my gosh, it was a way bigger project than we expected it to be. So I'm expecting to have to take a long time with the process of having posters made.
yeah, we were looking for shirts specifically that were made in the U.S. and believe it or not, that was not an easy thing to do. We have found a company that sells shirts that are made in the U.S. And we understand like the heat press that we use.
Yes.
It was made in China.
Oh, okay.
That's just the reality of it.
The only way to get a heat press that's made in the U.S. is to spend 4 to 5 times as much.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's like, I can't drop $2,000 on a heat press at the moment.
Right now, yeah.
That's a down payment for a car. No.
Yeah,
It is,
absolutely.
yeah.
Sometimes it is a car.
It is a car in some cases.
Yeah. So
It was my first car.
Mm-hmm.
right. So as we grow and expand, we'll have the ability to be more picky than we are. But right now, like, we understand that we were able to find shirts that were a decent price made in the U.S. So we
Yes.
went ahead and went with that.
Awesome.
But if I can't find a heat press that's not made in China, am I just going to shrug my shoulders and go, well, I guess I'm not making T-shirts? Like, no. We'll go ahead and work with what we got. And I mean, it's my hope that one day we're big enough that we'll have enough influence that we can kind of go to companies and be like, yeah, we want to work with you, but you use Chinese child slave labor to make all your stuff. So
Yeah.
no. it's just not going to happen. And if that means, I mean, I know this might sound really crazy, but if that means that I have to be rich enough that I can buy a factory or open a factory here in the United States that makes heat presses, then I guess I will just have to do that.
Hey,
you know,
there's that entrepreneurial spirit again. I love it.
Right, and that's obviously years down the road.
Hey,
but that is the goal. By the way, Ophelia Doom, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
And I realized I didn't say in the chat, I am Huge Cow Patty. That's my Twitch name.
Yes.
I should make a Kakariko Creations Twitch so that if I do this again, people will understand that I am.
Absolutely.
That's me.
Yeah, Ophelia Doom is actually someone I know in person. She's one of my best friends, so she's always happy to come and support whenever I do things like this. So yeah, she's true to her word. If she says she's going to help us out, she's definitely going to do that, and probably blast in our own Twitch channel where she has like 200 followers. So
awesome.
Yeah, no problem there.
That coupon code is good for everything on the shop, not just the Zelda theme stuff, except for there is a listing for like a custom shirt, so like where you actually send us, and the reason why is that like if you sent me an already made design and you were just like, hey, just slap this on a shirt, yeah, that I don't care, I'll give you the discount. But that listing is specifically for people that are like, hey, I want this on a shirt, but I don't have a design. Okay. So we would have to actually work with them. And so
absolutely.
That's the only reason why that coupon does not work on that particular
service.
Is because that's a lot more work than just, sure, I'll print this out and there you go.
Of course. That makes plenty of sense. Over this conversation, I think I've come to terms with what my philosophy is as a freelance artist, is that I realize taking commissions makes me better as an artist. I think it's only fair if I try to make my client better as a client when they interact with me. So when they come to me and start asking me questions and delivering their ideas to me, I try to use my expertise and my finesse to let them know, here's where you can get what you want and make it even better. Because it's always easier as an artist to work with something that already exists rather than with a blank canvas, because now you can move it around and realize like, hey, this can be improved, that can be improved. So when you come with someone like that and I know like, okay, I see what you're trying to do, here's how it can be even better. That is like one of the joys of the trade as far as I am concerned. That's what I consider it, almost like a sacred duty of mine to be able to do that, to not just make myself better as an artist, but to make you better as a client, so that when you go either to me or to someone else, you're even better. And let me give you a word of confidence. Now you two are one of the better clients that I have had over the course of my career. I've been doing this for well over 10 years. I've had more of my fair share of terrible clients, and you're nowhere on that list. Make no mistake about that. And I definitely look forward to that. And actually, we have a question from Ophelia Doom right now, and I'm sure you guys will be able to answer this better than I can. Are there plans on doing more products with different games for your shop?
Absolutely. Ophelia, I don't know if you were here earlier in the stream when I said my favorite game ever is Chrono Trigger. We're definitely going to be visiting that game a lot. I'm trying to think of other games. Like we're into Super Mario. Oh yeah, we talked about the Mario Brothers and Waluigi as a boy band. That's probably down.
We're also
down the pipe.
Like
with
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right. That are not necessarily video games.
Our son is he knows, like, he'll watch Star Wars and tell me what kind of blaster that stormtrooper is using.
Oh, he's that kind of Star Wars nerd.
Yeah, he'll also
say it wrong. He'll correct it.
Yeah, he'll also tell me that I called that thing a stormtrooper, and it's actually I don't even know what.
I forget. There's something else that those things are called.
Yeah, so he's that guy. Now we have he's a brand new teenager. So we've had to tell him things like, hey, I find that to be really interesting. But if you start popping that off at your friend's house, especially with that condescending tone that you have, you're gonna be a very lonely person.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So try and just know your audience. Some people want to know this.
Yes.
A lot of people do not
care. Do not care at all.
Let's see. I'd love to see some with Legacy of Kain. I gotta be honest. I know what Legacy of Kain is. I've never played a Legacy of Kain. Sure, but like I said, on our Etsy shop, we have a thing where you can do a custom shirt. So if you have an idea and you want to send it to us, we're certainly willing to explore that. I do know they say in investing, don't invest in something you don't know anything about.
Yes.
Even if, so if you're like, oh, this laundry detergent company is going to make me a whole bunch of money. Well, that might be true, but unless you're just really into laundry detergent,
yes,
I don't know why you would bother doing that.
Right.
So while I definitely think that there's gonna, I don't think, I know there's gonna come a time when we will have to expand into things like Legacy of Kain that I don't know a whole ton about.
Yes.
We'll obviously be focusing on stuff that we're passionate about, because the last thing that you want is okay, so let's say I do make a Star Wars shirt and I get some weird detail wrong because I'm not as big of a Star Wars nerd as somebody else is.
Yes.
There's a bunch of people out there that would, I mean, this is just how the internet is. yeah, like not only would they not buy the shirt, but then they would post on Facebook, don't buy a shirt from these people. They don't know.
They're going to cancel you. You'll get the cancel culture mob on you.
Right. And then I'm like, what? I don't have any idea. So, but yeah, so Legacy of Kain's on PS2?
PS2 is where it originally came out. I think all those games are now on Steam. So, actually, I have a few of them on Steam. I know I have, like, one of the old games on PS2. I also have never actually sat down and played a Legacy of Kain game, but yes, I'm also very familiar with them. Their strongest element, as far as I'm concerned, is their writing. Like, once you start looking at the story, it's ingeniously well written. Gameplay, judge for yourself, but that's the strongest point as far as I'm concerned. And yet, Affiliate actually commissioned me to do a poster of 2 Legacy of Kain characters years ago. I'm sure she still has it sitting on her wall somewhere. Okay. But yeah, that's my familiarity. And you're right, when you start doing commissions like this, people will open you up to other venues and franchises that previously you had no interest in. Every single year at October, we artists have this little event that we like to call Inktober, where we all just do ink drawings, for the entire month. And I always like to take requests from all my Facebook friends, and usually when I put up a post asking for Inktober requests, I get like at least 100 requests in there, and some are good, some are bad, some are like, okay, I'm just trying to fill up time. But I wind up doing pieces that I did not think I would enjoy doing as much. I think one of the ones that I really fell in love with is that someone asked me to draw Tracer from Overwatch. I've never played Overwatch. I have little to no interest in playing Overwatch because I don't care much for multiplayer-only games. That's one of my personal biases. I don't really care for those kinds of games. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't play League of Legends as much as I used to anymore, for that very reason. But I had so much fun drawing Tracer that I just had to keep myself open to those kinds of possibilities in the future. I think more recently, someone asked me to draw Sailor Jupiter from Sailor Moon. Now, I didn't grow up watching Sailor Moon. I was, a 10-year-old boy when Sailor Moon was playing. I was too busy, running around with my Digimon and Ninja Turtles at that time to care for that. But I had such a blast drawing Sailor Jupiter that it pressured me to, check it out because the whole series is available on Hulu. And yeah, I had a blast watching that. So yes, doing this is going to open you up to other fan bases that you did not know existed and did not think that you would ever be into. Just now, you've reminded me that I need to go ahead and sit down and play Chrono Trigger sometime. I have it. I can play it. I just need to sit down and do it now. So
what do you have it on?
I have it on PC, Steam.
Okay. I've heard they've fixed it, and so I haven't played it. So that's not a bad version. I tell people avoid the PlayStation version.
Really?
And it's really just because the load times
are
atrocious, and they just never. I mean, well, it's PlayStation, so like you
of course
update it or anything. It's just. I mean, other than that, it's the same game. I think the best way to play that game is probably for DS. The DS port is very good.
Okay.
And it has all the features that were added to the PlayStation version.
I see.
Plus an extra dungeon that even though I have it for DS, I never went and played that dungeon. And not because like I'm just like, no, I will not. I just in my head I get to the end of the game and I'm like, okay, it's over. Because this is how I played it on the Super Nintendo for years, and I just never went and did it. So I guess when I say the best way to play it is on DS, what I mean to say is I think the easiest way to play a good version of it is the DS.
The Nintendo DS version.
I'm a purist. If you can go get a Super Nintendo and a copy of Chrono Trigger for Super Nintendo, which is not cheap, I say that's the way to play that game. But I've heard that they've fixed the PC version and that it's actually very good right now. I have the mobile version also, and it was mostly just because I had some Google Play credit that was going to expire.
I see.
So I'm like, well, I'm going to spend it on something, and so I picked it up for Android.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's right. They did release it on mobile too. I forgot about that.
Right. But if you'd never played Chrono Trigger before, I'd be like, don't play that version.
Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Okay, so yeah, if I were to sit down and do it, it will most likely be on Steam. That's what I'll be doing that on, and that seems to be the most up-to-date version anyway, the most recent release. So hopefully, any bugs or glitches or issues that other versions may have will more than likely not exist on this version. So I'll be looking forward to that. So we're about an hour and 15 minutes into this. I think we've gone over everything that I wanted to go over. Are there any other concerns, comments, or issues you can bring up before I bring in my final question for all three of us? What do you got?
Just follow us on Etsy. If you search Kakariko Creations on Etsy, you can find us there. But if you want to just go straight to it, I did link it in the chat. If you're going to type it in, you can also do kakarikocreations.etsy.com, which is a little bit less wordy than the link that they provide for you. Like I said, we've got the champs. We are working on versions of the individual champs that are just on a transparent background, because I know I've had some people actually tell me, they're like, hey, can I just get Link, and like the lava and stuff's not there and no text and stuff, and like, we haven't actually gone through and like, I mean, I realize it's fairly simple to go in and turn the appropriate layers and stuff off.
Yes.
Photoshop.
Yes. That's a very simple process.
Right. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yes, of course.
So there's that. Like I said, the I love my wife, or I love it when my wife plays video games with me, and then soon is coming. I love it when my husband plays video games with me.
Yes.
We're probably not going to make separate listings for this. But if somebody out there was like, hey, I want one that is, I love it when my son plays video games with me.
Awesome.
Sure, I'll swap the word out and do that. And then if you want one for dad or father, you know, that's fairly simple.
There you go.
So, and then the one that she's working on. But yeah, we're going to have Christmas stuff.
Oh, cool.
Soon. I think we're probably too close to Halloween for us to get anything that's really good put out, but
spooky time.
We're gonna be constantly doing stuff, and hopefully the shop takes off soon. And actually, as soon as I get done here, I'm going to drive Uber.
All right, man.
Well, you guys can also follow us on Facebook.
Oh, yes.
Instagram.
We would really appreciate it if you guys would just share so that this can be out there.
Oh, yeah.
And if anybody, I did this just because somebody told me that they get a lot of interaction on. So I don't have a Twitter account because I think Twitter is trash.
It is.
But someone told me, and I know that some people would be like, ew, what'd you do that for? Truth Social, that they actually do really well on that. That's Donald Trump's social media. So I was
really?
Like, what the heck? I'll open a Truth Social account.
Wow.
And I did. And so, yeah, we're on there.
Or Parler?
No one's following. What's that?
How about Parler?
You know, I haven't tried Parler. I had a personal Parler account before they got nuked from orbit, and I haven't checked.
They're back now.
Okay. I'll have to go check that out. I do know that on Truth, because we are not a political thing, I haven't really gotten any traction on it. But who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I'll check out. I had Parler. I'll check out Parler again. But the big places are Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
And Etsy. You can follow us there. We're anytime we do a new design or we've got something going on, we share it there. If we do a code, we share it there. So thank you very much, Ophelia. Appreciate that.
Yes.
if Tyrone says you're a good person, then
She is. Very
I
good
believe
person.
him. And you're now my favorite person after my wife and my child, because you went and followed us on all of our
There you go.
platforms.
That's how you. If you ever want to become Patrick's favorite person, follow him on all social media.
Right. It's that easy.
Yep. So I'm definitely going to see about pitching those. I love it when my wife plays video games with me. I'm going to make sure I get those shirts out to another really good friend of mine, Chris, and his wife May live out in California, and they play Monster Hunter together religiously. So I'm going to make sure that I get that out to them as soon as I can. I know that they would absolutely love to have those shirts because, yeah, they are gaming, anime, weebing nutcase of a couple. So I love them to death. So I know they're going to have a bunch of fun with that. So to tie this off, I think the final question we're going to ask is, what is the last video game you played and what's the next one you plan on playing?
Ooh, you wanna...
Well, the last one that I finished was Skyward Sword.
Okay.
I really, really enjoyed that game. Oh, come here, honey. I'm sorry. Don't eat it. No, we were back here.
Oh, okay.
I really, really enjoyed that game. And the next one that I've just started is Chrono Trigger.
Oh, okay.
Like that for the first time.
Awesome.
On the Super Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest things about playing old games is that, you know, you've got the wired controllers, and so you've got the 8-bit DOE,
Yes.
Bluetooth controller, then I can play it with the same original buttons, you know,
Yeah.
while not being 3 feet away from the TV.
Right.
Yeah, and she's still very, very, very early in the game. She has obviously no spoilers because I don't want her, but
Yeah.
the thing that kicks everything off, she hasn't even done that yet. So
Okay.
it's very early.
Goodness.
So I feel like I have multiple answers to that, and that's just because. So while I'm out Ubering and I'm waiting for someone, I'm going through the post game content in Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. I've been enjoying that, but I don't like when I'm here. I don't like sit down and play it. The last game that I sat down and got all comfortable and played was, and it's actually, I'm using this.
Go for it.
But I am going through probably for the millionth time on my Super Nintendo Mini, Super Mario RPG: Legend of Seven Stars, which is a great game. Great game if you haven't played that. And then the last game that I sat down and beat, I might be Chrono Trigger actually. Yeah. So did that recently. But I am also I played through Skyward Sword on.
Was it Donkey Kong?
Oh, it might have been. So.
Oh wow.
I know we're getting off on a tangent, but our son has Link's Awakening remake and Pikmin 3 and that Mario and Rabbids game for Switch.
Yeah.
And up until recently, he hadn't beat any of them. He did recently beat Link's Awakening, but he had had them for a while. And so I would tease him like, "Hey, have you beat Link's Awakening yet?" No. Have you beat this? No. Have you beat that? No. And I'm like, "Here, you're buying all these Steam games and stuff. What are you doing?" Well, then
And he's not as big of a Zelda fan as we are.
Right. But then my lovely wife here is like, "Hey, he being me, hasn't beat Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze yet."
Oh yeah, that game.
And I have 2 copies of that game because I have it for Wii U, and then I got it again for Switch, and I hadn't beaten it on either one. So anytime I would razz our son about this, he would go, "Have you beat Tropical Freeze yet?" And I finally got tired of it and was like, "You know what? I'm gonna beat it." And so I sat down, and that game is so hard, but I did. And so then one day we're talking to him on the phone, and he's like, you know, I'm giving him a hard time, and then he goes, "Did you beat Tropical Freeze yet?" And I'm like, "I did, you little punk." So yeah, Tropical Freeze might be the game that I beat most recently, but I am playing through Skyward Sword on Switch. I'm just not as because I played it already on Wii, and I really liked it. It's a great game. I'm not like as motivated to like, yeah, I'm gonna sit down and burn through this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, and what is that answer for you?
For me, yeah, that's why I left myself for last. So the last game I beat and completed is definitely Elden Ring. I didn't just beat it, I platinumed it. I got the platinum trophy. Now I'm just sitting and waiting for the DLC, which will inevitably drop. FromSoft consistently makes some of the best DLC for their games ever. So, I mean, the Bloodborne DLC alone could qualify as Game of the Year as far as I'm concerned. You know, just how consistently excellent they are with putting out content like that. So I'm just waiting in the wings on that. As for the games I'm playing right now, on my stream, I'm going through the first Dead Space right now, actually.
Okay.
And first and foremost, that game came out, I think I was in college when it came out, or just going into college when it came out. That game has aged remarkably gracefully. It is still an excellent game, even by today's standards. Same with the sequel, which I plan on getting to after the first Dead Space 2. Both those games, it is remarkable that they came out such a long time ago as far as video games are concerned. You know, 10 years ago is like ancient as far as video game age is concerned. Right. I was thinking to myself the other day, is like, hey, name a game that came out 20 years ago. I don't know, the first Resident Evil or Mega Man X. Like, no, Devil May Cry, you idiots. That came out over 20 years ago. Final Fantasy X came out over 20 years ago. That's ancient as far as video games are concerned. So, to see a game like the first two Dead Spaces that old and still that good, that playable, that accessible, that enjoyable, really speaks volumes to that. So, I'm pretty sure the first Dead Space will be the next game I beat, but I'm also... another game that I just started recently streaming was this little indie game that just came out a couple of weeks ago called Thymesia.
Okay.
Not all that well known. Again, it's a little indie title that FromSoft fans like myself are getting into because it models itself very much after the FromSoft games. Most specifically, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. It's more like that game than any of the other FromSoft games. And I've taken quite a bit of a shine to that. I played like the opening quote-unquote tutorial level of that on my stream. I like where that's going, so I'm more motivated to complete Dead Space for my spooky time streams, but I'll probably put a little bit more motivation in completing Thymesia as well because it is more recent and there's still a lot of buzz for that, so I expect to get some audience for that one. So that's what's going on in my gaming life right now. I think I also... they released a new Ninja Turtles beat-em-up game very recently. Yeah, I beat that one also very recently, like multiple times. It's designed like one of those short arcade beat-em-up games that we used to play growing up in the Chuck E. Cheese. So you can beat that in a couple of hours, and I've done that a couple of times on stream. That's a lot of fun. So that's exactly where I'm standing right now in my gaming body of work.
Cool. And real quick, just because you mentioned it earlier, shout out to who developed Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh goodness, is it Guerrilla Games?
Guerrilla Games.
I think that's it.
I've never heard anybody say this, and I know that they'll never hear this, but I wanted to give them a shout out because I feel like those games are probably really, really great. But the first one came out, and then 2 weeks later, Breath of the Wild came out, and no one cared anymore. Yeah. And then the second game came out.
Yes.
And like 2 weeks later, Elden Ring came out.
And then nobody cared anymore.
So I'm like, I feel bad for these guys. I don't have a PlayStation. I'm not a PlayStation guy, so I don't know that I ever get to play it, but they look really fun.
Yeah.
And every time I think about it, I'm like, I feel a little sad.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're just getting a raw deal.
Yeah, their timing is very bad. That much can be said. But hey, I played Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn. I finished Horizon Zero Dawn. I did not finish Breath of the Wild. So
there you go. So if you're out there, anybody, and you're really big into Breath of the Wild, give Horizon Zero Dawn a chance if you've got a PlayStation.
Yeah, and if you just got a PlayStation and don't have a Nintendo Switch, but you heard about Breath of the Wild and want to try something like it, Horizon Zero Dawn is a great, and the recent game Horizon Forbidden West, which is the sequel, definitely great substitutes, and maybe even be more enjoyable depending on your angle. At least it was for me. Definitely, and yeah, it was Guerrilla Games. If I'm not mistaken, they're the same people who made Gears of War, but I could be wrong about that.
No, that's Epic. Guerrilla made Red Faction.
Oh, okay, that's it. Yeah, I know they made some other big franchise before Horizon Zero Dawn, so yeah, much love to them, much respect to them that they're going above and beyond the Call of Duty, trying to do something new like that. But yeah. Absolutely. Well, this has been a blast. Again, it was a real joy working with y'all. It was a real a state of euphoria to actually see this completed. I remember when I first printed it off against my photo printer right here, I was like, man, this is looking clean. And then you guys put it on the show, it's like, hey, that looks clean.
Yep.
So
looks really good.
it's always, I've often told people this before and on my social media that being an artist is like being pregnant all the time. Because you always got something brewing in you that just has to get out, and you go through constant mood swings, and you're constantly frustrated with yourself and constantly sacrificing food and sleep for the sake of seeing it through to the end. And as soon as you're done, something else is on your back trying to get out as well. So seeing something get out and seeing it go out to the world it's a euphoric state. And seeing, especially something like this, that has been one of the more ambitious titles that I've undertaken, and definitely even more ambitious for you, since you made an entire shift in your standard of living in order to make this happen. Yeah, it's definitely a joy to finally see it to fruition like this. And here's hoping and praying for much, much more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure working with you, and we are looking forward to doing stuff with you in the future as well.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. I'll probably leave the viewers with a little bit of music before turning off the stream for good. But again, if you guys haven't caught it yet, go and follow Kakariko Creations at Instagram, at Facebook, at not Twitter, but
That's right.
Etsy. And Etsy.
Yeah.
Etsy is the big shop where you can go in and get all their cool stuff. I'll be putting links in the description, and Twitch and YouTube once I get the chance, so you guys can make that as easy for yourselves as you can. But in the meantime...
There's a coupon using the code SycrosD4, and there's a 25% discount. That was right?
Yeah, 25% on everything on the store except for that custom thing.
For, what was it, the next 2 weeks?
Yes, it expires. So the last day to use it is the 17th.
Yep. So get it out there. I'll definitely be posting about that, making sure everybody gets that code, and I'll share it all over my Instagrams and Facebook so people can get that incentive. Go out and get that. But in the meantime, it is Labor Day weekend, and I want to make sure you guys all have a chance to enjoy the most of that. So in the meantime, I'll leave you guys with some music. Take care. God bless. Thank you both for joining me on my stream.
Thank you for having us.
This will be the first of many. Take care.
Yes.